This video is courtesy of a question by Kefan Chogu, one of our subscribers to the channel, and Chogu is asking, can all investors in a money market fund, and in this case he has specified the Mali money market fund, be allowed to withdraw in mass? My interpretation of that question is, can all investors in a particular money market fund be allowed to make withdrawals at once? This comes at a very good time when Genghis Capital, the fund manager for Mali Money Market Fund, and Jen Kav Hela Himara Money Market Fund is facing challenges that have created huge negative publicity that has eroded investor confidence and therefore creating a panic among many investors in those two investment vehicles, and that consequently has brought about mass panic withdrawals by a majority of the investors. We shall be looking at specific facts that make it impossible for such kind of withdrawals. And that is the main reason why, if you look at the traffic of information that is flooding the websites and many channels, is that many investors are not able to access the platforms and they are getting messages of either try later, call the customer care service, and that kind of information that tries to manage the traffic or manage the investor at the point of withdrawal. We shall look at the specifics that make this kind of circumstance that the fund manager that has created the panic withdrawal as one of the several factors that this channel has highlighted as circumstances under which your right to withdraw your money from a money market fund can be curtailed. This comes from the basis of the understanding that money market funds are safe investment vehicles that have a singular objective. All money market funds, they have a singular objective of getting the investors the highest possible return in the current rates of return while protecting the capital. And therefore, these investment vehicles are tailored in a way to make them conservative or low risk profile investment vehicles. Low risk does not mean that there is no risk of loss of capital, but it is managed and structured in a way, it is regulated in such a way that it is almost impossible to lose your capital in this kind of investments. But your right to access your investment can be curtailed in certain circumstances. And one such circumstance is when the fund manager or the platform is faced with mass withdrawals. We shall be looking at that aspect and the facts behind it after 3 seconds short break, so don't go away. In the meantime, as always, give a like to this video, engage us in the comment section, and you are free to share the video if you get value out of it. See you after 3 seconds short break. Welcome back, and thank you for your like to the video and the comment that I'm sure you're giving us as a feedback in the comment section and your sharing of this video. For us to be able to grasp the facts that make it impossible for you to access in mass the investments that we have done in the money market fund, we need to understand the investment ecosystem. And in this case, we are looking at the segregation of duties and functions within the money market fund investment ecosystem that consists the following parties. We have the fund manager, whose responsibility is to source investment opportunities. And out of what we have discussed severally in the channel and you have learned from other channels, money market funds invest in short-term near cash investment opportunities that are easy to liquidate. And when we talk of current asset or near cash items, These are investments that can take not more than 12 months to liquidate or convert them back to cash. Recently, through amendments to the regulations by the Capital Authority, that capping of duration of horizon of investment for money market funds was stretched from 12 months, that is 1 year, to 1.5 years, that on a weighted average basis goes up to 18 months. And that means then the investments that fund managers invest the amounts or the funds collected through money market fund investment vehicles, they are tied to investments of a period weightedly not more than 18 months. On the basis of that one, once the fund manager identifies the opportunity available, he signals the custodian, who is the other party where the money is domiciled. The fund manager does not come into direct contact with the money. The money is with the custodian. So once the fund manager has identified where the money need to be directed to, he informs the custodian who wires that money to that particular investment. And remember, these are investments for definite period of time. For an example, if the fund manager sources to invest in a treasury bill of a 1 year or 365 days, then it means that investment is tied to for a whole year. If it is a 91 day, that is an investment that has been tied for 3 months. It can also be tied for 6 months. And remember, our stretch is for 1.5 years. There is the third party, the trustee, who is mandated to ensure that the rights of the investors are taken care of. And therefore, one function is that he ensures that the custodian and the fund managers invest this money in the best interest of the investors. Then we have the regulator, that is the CMA, who ensures or periodically receives reports from the fund manager, the trustee, and the custodian to ensure that the investments follow the regulations which have been designed to protect the investors. In that case, then, the fund manager has to hold meetings with the trustee, separate meetings with the custodian, and periodically those reports are sent to the Capital Markets Authority for purposes of reviewing the adherence with the regulations. There is another party called the auditor, where the auditor ensures that the investment or he checks for completeness and assurance to the investors that those funds or the activities of the independent persons in the ecosystem are done in the best interest of the investors. And at this point, it begs the question, when was the last time as an investor did you attend the members' annual general meeting for your specific investment? Now, that aside, we need to look at the asset allocations. Where is this money kept? Because if your investment or if this money has been invested in a 365-day treasury bill, it has been tied for 1 year. And as investors, we flock the system trying to access our cash back. It only means, by matter of fact, the fund manager should look for an opportunity to liquidate fast those treasury bills. To liquidate is to sell. Where that is a process that needs time. And that is now where, as investors, we need that patience to give the fund manager time to liquidate, to make all that money available in one basket. And it's only at that time that we can access our money as all the investors. But now looking at that being an impossibility, because generally not all investors in one particular investment vehicles would panic. There are those investors who have the information, the literacies that money market funds are safe. Regardless of the circumstances that the fund manager find herself into, the money that is tied in the fund for the investors is held in trust and separate from the assets relating to the fund manager. That said, if you look at this schedule, this is a schedule of the asset allocation of the Mali money market fund. And looking at it, government securities, those are treasury bonds, treasury bills, are whooping 43%. Call deposits at 34%. We have fixed deposits holding 22%. Only 1% is in cash because there's always that small amount that will be held in order to make it possible for the liquidity aspect of a money market fund, the ability to dispense cash to the investors who are withdrawing as per the attributes of that product. Because a money market fund will outline the turnaround time for withdrawals. If it is 24 hours, 48 hours, or 2 days, depending on the channel that this investor is using to withdraw. But now looking at this nature, if we are going to flock all of us as investors to access to withdraw the entire investment that we have put with that vehicle, and considering that looking at this 1% that is being held in cash, and that one is out of monitoring the traffic. And don't forget, we have two aspects. There are those who are bringing in new money for investment, and the few who are withdrawing part of the investments from the fund. And this would be simply a case of a tank that has an inlet and an outlet. If you were to maintain this tank at full capacity, you must ensure that the water flowing in through the inlet is much more in capacity compared with the water that is flowing out. In the event the outflows are more than the inflows, then you are at the danger of draining all the water in that tank. And at some point, you will have to close the outlet tap in order to build some volume in the tank to allow a good outflow of water. If you take that example with a money market fund, the inflows, the new money for investment need to be more than the old money that is moving out of the fund by older investors. In the case of negative publicity that draws down the investor confidence to create these panic withdrawals, it definitely means that the new money stops coming in because no one wants to invest in an investment vehicle that has such noise. Money doesn't like noise. So most people will withhold their new investment into the vehicle. And considering the fact that Mali Money Market Fund suspended new investor onboarding in July 2024. So the old investors are the ones who have been putting more new money into the investment, but also majority of these investors in Mali Money Market Fund, they also created their new accounts with the ZD Money Market Fund, and therefore that is to mean much of their new investments, they wired or they rerouted to another money market fund. So it's obvious that these money market funds, its inlet dwindled down, and the 1% that is held in cash may not be enough to sustain panic mass withdrawals. And that is now based on the outcome bounded by the fact that the investments where this money is tied, they are also time bound. And that is the reason why at some point you are right to withdraw that money. Even if you are not told expressly that you will not be able to access this money as to be curtailed. Because in line with the objective of money market funds of ensuring that there is zero chance of losing investor capital, these liquidation of the current investments to make money available for withdrawal by the investors has to be managed in such a way that the disposals or liquidation of those assets is not at a loss that eats into the build up of returns and the capital by the investors. That is on one basis. The other aspect is the coming in of the regulator to cool down the anxiety by the investors. And by this circular that was issued by the Capital Markets Authority, trying to advocate for the same information that we have been sharing on these platforms, that money market funds are safe on account of the investor ecosystem that gives segregation of duties of the four players or parties in that ecosystem, which ensures that the money the investor monies in the fund are held in trust and in separated from the assets of the fund manager and the custodian. And that, for those investors who understand that piece of financial literacy, they are cool and can be patient to give the fund manager enough time and hopefully also continue with their investment, because if the worst pays a visit, the CMA comes in and transfers the entire fund to a new fund manager. So he assigns the custodian a new fund manager who continues managing that fund. And as a channel, we are looking forward to ZD Money Market Fund eventually might swallow Money Market Fund. That is just a view of this channel. Lastly, but not the least, is to affirm the point that monies invested in money market funds are that safe. They cannot be lost whatsoever. In the event the fund manager finds himself in extreme difficulties that he cannot continue managing the fund, that fund will simply be taken over by Capital Markets Authority and assigned to another fund manager. But one thing is a fact, that once a financial institution is faced with this magnitude of negative publicity, it takes quite a long time for the investing public to rebuild their confidence with that investor. But there are always those investors who are loyal to a particular fund manager and the investment vehicle. So we foresee these events cooling down, and the two money market funds will continue operating in the long run. Thank you for watching, and thank you, Kefan Jogu, for your question. See you in the next video.